Emilia stepped off the Gare du Nord platform, her suitcase rattling unevenly over the cobblestones, blending with the soft clatter of departing trains and murmurs of travelers. The crisp autumn air smelled of croissant, roasted coffee, and a hint of wet leaves, the scent of Parisian gardens drifting faintly from the nearby Jardin des Plantes. Her chest fluttered with excitement, each breath an attempt to inhale the entire city in one moment. Paris was chaotic, vibrant, alive, and entirely different from the streets of New York she had left behind. As she maneuvered her suitcase toward the taxi stand, she noticed the city's rhythm. A painter sketching in a doorway, a cyclist dodging pedestrians with practiced agility, a mother coaxing her toddler along the uneven cobblestones. Each detail was a story, each glance a moment captured in the theater of Parisian life. Emilia's camera, already hanging from her shoulder, clicked instinctively, capturing these fragments as if she could bottle the city itself. The taxi ride to Le Marais felt cinematic. Through the rain-speckled window, Haussmannian buildings rose with precise elegance, their wrought iron balconies adorned with late-blooming flowers. Cafés spilled onto the sidewalks, patrons sipping espresso and nibbling pastries while journalists flipped through newspapers. Street musicians played violins and accordions, their melodies carrying over the faint honks of impatient drivers. Emilia watched it all in awe, heart racing with anticipation. Arriving at her apartment, Mia, her roommate, greeted her at the doorway with a whirlwind of energy. "Emilia, you actually made it! I was beginning to worry the city would swallow you whole." She laughed, pulling Emilia into a tight embrace. "I survived," Emilia replied with a breathless laugh. "Barely." Mia handed her a tiny espresso cup. "Drink this. You'll need it. Paris will chew you up without mercy, mon ami. But don't worry. I'll guide you through." Emilia's new appartement was sunlit, modest but full of character. She unpacked her wardrobe, her carefully curated notebooks, and her camera equipment, arranging them meticulously. Every outfit mattered. Paris judged appearances as much as talent. She hung her soft coats on the hooks by the door, lined her chic flats neatly, and admired the small balcony that overlooked the narrow street below. Merchants were setting up their stalls, the smell of fresh bread drifting upward, mingling with the faint scent of perfume from a passing pedestrian. After settling in, Mia insisted they explore the neighborhood. The streets were a sensory overload, narrow and winding, lined with boutiques, galleries, and cafés. She noticed a man balancing a tray of espresso cups while dodging pedestrians, a florist arranging geraniums on wrought iron balconies, and a painter capturing the morning light on canvas. Emilia's camera clicked constantly, documenting the chaos, the color, and the charm of the city. Her first night in Paris was a quiet reflection. Sitting on her balcony with a small cup of wine, Emilia watched as the city lights flickered on, reflecting in the puddles of rain along the cobblestones. The city seemed to breathe beneath her, a living, intoxicating organism. She felt both dwarfed and exhilarated, a small figure in a world of elegance, history, and endless possibility. Emilia's first day at Savoir & Co. was a mix of awe and intimidation. Sylvie, the office director, appeared in a tailored blazer, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floors. Her gaze evaluated Emilia like a chess master assessing a new player. "Emilia," Sylvie said in precise English laced with French, "Paris rewards subtlety, elegance, and precision, not enthusiasm, not theatrics. You understand? Yes, of course, Emilia said, straightening her posture, her pulse quickening under the weight of expectation. Across the office, Camille observed quietly, her expression polite but calculating, exuding effortless sophistication. And in the far corner, seated near the sunlight streaming through the windows, was Gabriel. His eyes lifted briefly from his notebook, and when they met Emilia's, she felt a flicker, a spark she could not yet name. The week unfolded as a series of challenges. Emilia attempted to immerse herself in French customs, the correct BC greetings, using vous instead of tu, and observing every subtle tone in conversation. Yet even small mistakes drew attention. Her first client presentation was a test. She suggested a dynamic digital campaign featuring Parisian's everyday style, street fashion, and interactive social media elements. Sylvie's response was measured but sharp. Too naive. Parisian clients respond to subtlety, to elegance, not spectacle. Emilia's face warmed, a mixture of embarrassment and determination. Camille's soft smirk cut even deeper. Perhaps you are still discovering the city, Camille said, her voice smooth, yet dripping with condescension. Your ideas are bold, but bold is not always right. Emilia bit her lip, stifling the urge to defend herself. The city, the office, the client, all seemed to speak a language she had yet to master. The tension escalated midweek when she accidentally spilled coffee on Camille's designer blazer. The office went silent. Emilia fumbled with napkins, murmuring apologies. Camille dabbed the stain delicately, her lips pressed into a faint, controlled smile. Be careful, Paris watches, she said lightly. Despite embarrassment, Emilia noticed Gabriel quietly approaching. It's okay, he said softly, helping steady the spill and offering a reassuring glance. Mistakes happen. Breathe, Emilia. That small act of kindness was like sunlight breaking through clouds. In that moment, she realized that Paris was as much about human connection as about elegance, art, and precision. The first triumph came unexpectedly. A boutique client was launching an autumn collection, and Emilia suggested a campaign highlighting everyday Parisians, their style, personalities, and the natural charm of the city streets. Sylvie raised a skeptical brow. You really think this will convince them? Yes. Authenticity resonates more than perfection, Emilia replied, her voice calm yet filled with conviction. The boutique loved the idea. Within hours, social media buzzed with praise for the campaign's creativity and warmth. Even Sylvie allowed herself a faint nod. Camille, for once, gave a subtle smile, acknowledging Emilia's success without overt warmth. Later, Gabriel appeared at the boutique, sampling pastries and offering quiet suggestions. Across the crowded space, their eyes met. Electricity hummed in the air, a spark that neither could ignore. Walking home, Emilia reflected on the day. The small victories, the minor embarrassments, the golden light of Parisian streets. The city, with all its challenges and beauty, had begun to teach her a rhythm. Missteps were temporary, perseverance essential, and magic could appear in the most unexpected moments. She paused at a corner cafe, inhaling the scent of roasted coffee and listening to a street violinist. In that simple, ordinary moment, Emilia felt it. Paris was no longer just a city. It was a living, breathing challenge, a teacher, and perhaps a partner in her unfolding story. The city seemed to shift as November crept in, clouds hanging low over the Seine, scattering golden leaves across the cobblestones. The once charming streets now felt sharper, the air heavier with unspoken expectations. Emilia walked briskly through Les Marais, clutching her notebook and smartphone, her thoughts tangled with deadlines and client demands. The boutique campaign's success had given her confidence, but Sylvie's unspoken standards and Camille's subtle scrutiny continued to shadow her steps. Her next big assignment was more daunting, a luxury brand launch that required not just creativity, but a delicate understanding of Parisian nuance. The client, a fashion house renowned for its legacy, expected campaigns that were understated yet provocative, polished yet approachable, a delicate balance Emilia struggled to articulate. She spent long nights sketching ideas, editing visuals, and rehearsing her presentations. Yet each attempt felt slightly out of rhythm with the city's subtle elegance. On the day of the meeting, she arrived in her favorite beige trench coat, scarf loosely draped, heels clicking precisely against the marble floors of the brand's office. Gabriel appeared unexpectedly in the lobby, leaning casually against the reception desk, sketchbook tucked under his arm. Their eyes met, a silent acknowledgement that grounded her as much as it unnerved her. "Good luck," he whispered with a smile, brushing her hand lightly. "You've got this, Emilia." She exhaled and nodded, forcing a confident smile. But as the meeting progressed, subtle errors compounded. She mispronounced a client's name, gestured too broadly, and presented a bold visual concept that Sylvie had cautioned might be too American. The Rue's polite murmurs felt like daggers. Camille's smile, tight and precise, seemed to grow sharper with each passing moment. After the meeting, Emilia's confidence felt shattered. The cab ride home was silent except for the soft rumble of wheels on cobblestones. She reflected on every misstep, every comment, every imperceptible frown. Even Gabriel's casual encouragement felt distant, as though filtered through layers of failure and self-doubt. That evening, an unexpected text from the client arrived. Their response was positive, praising the originality of her concept, but they requested major changes, citing a need for a more subtle Parisian touch. The message, though ostensibly complimentary, read to Emilia like a reprimand. She sank onto her apartment sofa, staring at the ceiling, her mind a whirlwind of anxiety, frustration, and self-recrimination. The professional pressure mirrored personal tension. Gabriel had invited her to join him at a quiet wine bar by the Pont Neuf earlier that week, a chance for connection outside the office. Emilia had hesitated, trapped between work and her own uncertainty, and by the time she had decided, Gabriel had gone elsewhere. That small misalignment, coupled with weeks of near misses and misunderstandings, left her heart heavy. She wandered to Place des Vosges. The historic square, bathed in gray light, the trees shedding their leaves. Sitting on a cold bench, she scribbled furiously in her notebook, sketching campaign ideas, jotting reminders, and spilling emotions into words. The city around her seemed indifferent, yet intimately present. The footsteps of passers-by, the distant laugh of a child, the soft flutter of pigeons taking flight. Each sound felt amplified, echoing her internal turmoil. It was during one of these moments that Camille appeared, unexpectedly casual, as if by accident. "You work too hard," she said, her voice low, almost conspiratorial. "Paris is not just about labor. It is about elegance, understanding, and rhythm. You still do not grasp it." Emilia felt a surge of frustration. "I'm trying," she said, her voice firmer than she expected. "I'm learning. Isn't that enough?" Camille's expression softened just enough to feel genuine. "Learning takes more than time," she said quietly. "It takes observation, patience, and humility. Something you will understand eventually." The encounter left Emilia shaken yet oddly motivated. Camille's words, though critical, carried a truth she could not deny. She realized that she could not simply rely on enthusiasm and optimism. She needed strategy, subtlety, and a deeper understanding of the city's cultural pulse. The days that followed were clouded with self-doubt. Emilia found herself wandering through Montmartre in the rain, her trench coat soaked, boots muddied, and her notebook clutched tightly. The art district, once charming and inspiring, now felt overwhelming and unfamiliar. She watched painters and sculptors at work, their movements effortless, and felt a pang of inadequacy. Could she ever truly belong here? Could her vision resonate within a culture she barely understood? At night, she sat alone in her apartment, scrolling through campaign feedback, replaying conversations with Sylvie, Camille, and clients. The small victories now seemed fragile, fleeting. Her apartment felt too quiet, her thoughts too loud. She questioned whether she had made a mistake in coming here. Had she underestimated the complexity of Paris, its unspoken rules, its subtle codes of elegance and restraint? A glance at her camera reminded her of why she had come: to create, to capture, to connect. Yet the pressure had tainted her joy. She missed the relative clarity of New York, where audacity often trumped subtlety, where mistakes were temporary and learning immediate. Here, every misstep echoed longer, lingered in conversations, and left marks unseen but felt deeply. Even her interactions with Gabriel became tense. Texts went unanswered longer than expected. A missed cafe meeting left her heart sinking, twisting every word and glance into something potentially meaningful. Romance, once a thrilling undercurrent, now felt precarious. The sparkle of early attraction dimmed under the weight of doubt and misalignment. Emilia's self-reflection culminated in a solitary evening at Pont Alexandre III. The ornate bridge glistening under streetlights, the Seine flowing silently beneath. She watched the reflections of lamps shimmer on the water, blurred by her tears, and asked herself a question she hadn't dared to before. Am I capable of truly living here, of finding success and happiness? The city, indifferent yet alive, offered no answer. She felt the full weight of her naivety. The consequences of assuming optimism alone could navigate the intricate web of professional and personal life in Paris. In that moment, she was alone, uncertain, and painfully human. But as with all cities that hold secrets and lessons, Paris offered redemption. Emilia awoke the next morning to a quiet dawn, sunlight spilling over her balcony, casting a soft golden glow across her apartment. She realized that defeat was not the end. It was an invitation to recalibrate, to observe, to blend her energy with the rhythm of the city rather than push against it. She began her day differently. Instead of rushing to the office with rehearsed lines and rigid ideas, she wandered first through Rue Saint-Honoré, observing boutiques, street performers, and the subtle interactions of Parisians. She noted gestures, expressions, and tones, how a shopkeeper smiled before greeting a client, how a passerby adjusted their scarf, how the light played across window displays. At the office, she presented a revised concept for the luxury campaign. Instead of bold visuals, she suggested a narrative-driven approach, highlighting Parisian lifestyles, intimate portraits, and authentic interactions. Sylvie listened, expression unreadable, while Camille tilted her head, curious. Gabriel appeared beside her during the meeting, offering small, insightful observations that reinforced her points without overshadowing her voice. The client's response was immediate and enthusiastic. They praised the blend of creativity and subtlety, the authentic capture of Parisian life, and the originality that balanced ambition with elegance. Emilia's confidence surged, no longer reliant on blind optimism, but grounded in observation, patience, and understanding. Later, she met Gabriel at a quiet café tucked behind Place de la Concorde. He smiled warmly. "I knew you could do it," he said. "You just needed to see Paris on its own terms, rather than trying to bend it to yours." Emilia laughed softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I guess I finally understand what Camille was trying to teach me, even if I didn't appreciate it at the time." Camille appeared shortly after, unexpectedly, in her immaculate coat, and for the first time, her expression was softer, almost approving. "You've learned the city's rhythm," she said simply. "Not everyone does." The tension dissolved, replaced by a quiet sense of accomplishment. The challenges, mistakes, and near disasters had shaped her, refined her, and prepared her for a success that was not just professional, but deeply personal. She felt seen, capable, and ready to embrace both Paris and Gabriel, whose quiet presence now felt like an anchor rather than a challenge. The air was crisp and golden as Emilia stepped out of her apartment onto the quiet streets of Le Marais. Paris glimmered in its autumn brilliance, the cobblestones damp with the morning dew, reflecting the amber sunlight that spilled over the rooftops. She adjusted her scarf and inhaled deeply, savoring the familiar scents: roasted coffee from the corner café, the faint perfume of chrysanthemums from a nearby flower shop, and the subtle richness of baked bread wafting from the boulangerie. Today felt different, lighter, more vibrant, imbued with the satisfaction of triumph and the calm of personal growth. Her campaign had been a resounding success. The luxury brand's social media posts, showcasing authentic Parisians and their individual styles, had gone viral within hours. Even Sylvie, usually reserved in her praise, had sent a rare email. "Très bien, Emilia. Your instinct is becoming Parisian." Camille had offered a small nod of approval, acknowledging her victory with the elegance of a queen conceding to a worthy rival. Yet the professional success paled in comparison to the quiet thrill of her personal life. Gabriel had become a constant presence, though never forced, never overwhelming. A gentle tether, a steady heartbeat in the city's frenetic rhythm. They had shared coffees, brief walks along the Seine, and long discussions about art, fashion, and ambition. Each moment had deepened the connection. Yet Paris, as always, demanded patience, subtlety, and the courage to embrace its surprises. That evening, Emilia found herself standing on the balcony of her apartment, gazing at the city. The rooftops were painted in shades of gold and rose, the streetlights beginning to twinkle as dusk descended. She felt the familiar flutter of anticipation as Gabriel's text arrived. "Meet me at the Pont des Arts. I have something to show you." She wrapped herself in her beige trench coat and hurried through the streets, her heels echoing softly against the cobblestones. Paris à nuit était différent de la journée. Plus calme, plus intimide, les ombres accentuaient l'élégance de la ville. Les musiciens jouaient des mélodies poussées dans les impédivilles. Les amours coquillettes dérivaient des nombreux cafés qui d'huile signées, toilières, encore de fête ouverts et dorés. Gabriel waitait en de brige, liné casuellement à la colline, sketchbook en main. Ses soins étaient reflets dans la brise, la foudre tenissant son visuel. Il regarda comme il arrive, un sourire qui semblait dans son amour qui l'empêche de parler. "You made it. I wasn't sure if you would." Emilia relevait tendamment, murmurant. Il linait casuellement à la colline, le son de la scène sous les écoutes. The city glowing around them. Gabriel opened son sketchbook, revealing a series of illustrations, intimate portraits de la César, des gens et moments que les avaient changés ensemble. Un dessin en particulier s'est posé une pause. Un cadre sketch ouvert placé dans le balcon de son appartement, caméra en main, les yeux glands et déterminés par les sous-solières. "I wanted to capture you," Gabriel said quietly. "Not just what you see of the city, but what the city has brought out in you. Your courage, your optimism, your ability to embrace Paris, even when it fights back." Emilia felt warmth spread through her chest. You really see me," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "Not just the mistakes, not just the awkward moments, but me." Gabriel reached for her hand, and for the first time, Emilia felt the unspoken tension between them dissolve. Their fingers intertwined naturally, comfortably, as if they had always belonged together. The bridge was quiet, except for the gentle lapping of the river, the soft murmur of distant footsteps, and the music of a violin echoing from a nearby square. The city had become a private theater for their connection, intimate, alive, and full of possibility. "You've changed," Gabriel said, his eyes studying hers. "You've adapted without losing yourself. That's rare." Emilia laughed softly. "I had good teachers," she said, glancing toward the distant figures of Camille and Sylvie walking along the quay. Camille caught her eye for a brief moment, offering a polite nod, a subtle acknowledgement that Emilia had earned her place, even in rivalry. The evening air grew cooler, and Emilia shivered slightly. Gabrielle draped his scarf around her shoulders, a simple gesture that spoke of care, attentiveness, and unspoken affection. She looked up at him, a smile playing on her lips, and felt the kind of peace she hadn't realized she was searching for. "Do you want to see something?" Gabrielle asked, leading her to a small hidden courtyard nearby. Twinkling lights hung above, casting a warm glow over the fountain in the center. A single table was set for two, with a delicate arrangement of flowers and 2 glasses of champagne. Emilia gasped softly, the combination of thoughtfulness and beauty leaving her breathless. Gabrielle. This is incredible. He shrugged with a playful smile. Paris has a way of revealing secrets to those who are willing to look. And tonight, I wanted to share one with you. They sat, the soft clinking of glasses punctuating the quiet laughter and conversation of the few passers-by. They spoke of their lives, their dreams, their failures, and the lessons they had learned. Emilia shared the struggles of her first weeks in Paris, the missteps, the misunderstandings, the moments of doubt. Gabriel listened, attentive and patient, offering insight without judgment, encouragement without condescension. As the night deepened, the conversation turned to the future. "Do you think you could stay here?" Gabrielle asked tentatively, eyes searching hers. Emilia paused, considering the journey she had undertaken. The city that had intimidated her, challenged her, and ultimately shaped her. The professional victories she had achieved, the friendships she had forged, and now the romantic connection that had grown steadily, organically, against the backdrop of Parisian elegance. I think I could," she replied slowly. "Paris has become part of me, and so have you." Gabriel's hand tightened around hers, and in that quiet affirmation, the city seemed to exhale around them. The distant sound of the Seine flowing, the soft clatter of a café closing, and the gentle glow of lights reflected on the water created a perfect frame for the moment. Cinematic, tender, and deeply human. Later, as they walked back toward Le Marais, the streets emptying and the night deepening, Emilia felt a sense of completion, but also a sense of promise. Paris was not static. It continued to evolve, and so would she. The mistakes, the triumphs, the misunderstandings, and the lessons had all led her to this delicate balance of confidence, grace, and vulnerability. At her apartment balcony, she paused to look out over the rooftops once more. The city shimmered in the night, the lamps reflecting off the wet cobblestones, the sounds of Paris softened to a lullaby of distant conversations, footsteps, and music. She felt the weight of the past weeks lift, replaced by a sense of possibility, hope, and quiet joy. Gabriel joined her, leaning lightly against the railing. "You did it," he said, voice low and affectionate. "You found your place here, and me." Emilia turned to him, laughter and tears mingling in her expression. "We found each other," she corrected softly. For a long moment, they simply stood together, hand in hand, breathing in the city, their connection strengthened by challenges, victories, and the subtle magic of Paris. The night felt infinite, yet beneath the glow of streetlights and the whispering Seine, there was a sense that this was only the beginning. More adventures awaited, campaigns to conquer, streets to explore, art to discover, moments of intimacy and laughter, and the endless, delicate dance of romance in the city that had tested, challenged, and ultimately embraced them both. Paris had been a teacher, a lover, a challenge, and a reward. And for Emilia, it had become home. Not perfect, not simple, but alive, full of beauty and brimming with possibility. As she leaned her head against Gabriel's shoulder, watching the night unfold, she whispered, almost to herself, "Merci, Paris, for everything." The city seemed to shimmer in response, lights reflecting like stars on the water. And somewhere, in the quiet intimacy of the night. A sense of completion mingled with promise, a sweet cinematic ending that felt true, hopeful, and utterly Parisian.